The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Probably one of the most hyped up books ever. And I mean ever. The person that got me to read this book, Elias, another fellow booktuber. I cannot tell if what he said was right, that he has not found any negative reviews about this book at all, because neither have I. And my review is not negative of this book at all, but the real question is TJR's novel overhyped or not? That's what I want to get into this video. My name is Kirtan, and I am a new reader, a fairly new reader, and a new booktuber. This is definitely my first booktube video. I probably could have made this a booktube newbie tag, but I really like this so much that I just had to make something about it. So without further ado, let's get into it. So what is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo about? To explain the premise without trying to spoil it as much as I could, Monique Grant, a reporter for The Vivant, another journalism firm, is asked to do interview and a story for her company of Evelyn Hugo, who has been an insanely popular actress for like her past lifetime. Evelyn is such a huge celebrity and iconic actress that like nobody understands why she chose Monique, who is, for the lack of a better word, a nobody, to do this interview on her. And Monique goes, meets Evelyn, and then Evelyn unfolds her story in full transparency to Monique. And we start to understand more about Evelyn's life in full transparency, and we start to get to understand all the juicy tidbits that have happened to Evelyn that nobody else knows about, and Monique would be the first one to hear them. And by juicy tidbits, I mean her past love life, or lives, hence the name Seven Husbands, and the scandals that have been happening, and another love of her life that nobody else knew about. And then the book starts to get into more themes of bisexuality and biracialness, as we see biracialness in Monique, and we see a lot of bisexuality from Evelyn. I hope that wasn't a crazy spoiler. I don't think it was a spoiler, but given that Monique is the one doing this interview on Evelyn, we understand that Evelyn's main story is being told to Monique about her past timeline in somewhat of a retro Hollywood era for this person. And Monique is doing this interview in the late 2010s, around 2017, to Evelyn. So we do start to see some contrasting themes between the two timelines, and on top of that, we do start to see some contrasting differences between Monique and Evelyn herself. So that's overall my way of explaining the premise of the book to somebody else. And to get into my review of the book, I would say that The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, or what the booktube and bookstagram community would call TJR, is really, really good, especially for a new reader like me. It being such a quicker and easier level of a read with more bigger topics, but not deeper topics, if that makes sense. Like, we start to get into more adult content, but it's explained in such an easy way and quick way that it was very digestible for a newer reader like me to read. But in my opinion, what I feel really gets readers hooked and advocating for this book is the overall character development and persona of Evelyn. Like, she is so flawed, and she does so terrible things. But despite that, people still like her, which is freaking crazy. Like, she has done things like, as Emily May says in a Goodreads review, play the Hollywood game of dating men and sometimes even marrying them, hence why she has so many husbands, to advance further in her career. And there are also so many betrayals she has been a part of that have broken relationships. But despite that, readers and even myself, like, I still liked her. I still was a fan of her. But then, understanding this, we start to get into the question of whether this book is overhyped or not. But if you want to come to my opinion on whether it's overhyped, no, it's not. In fact, even though this is so popular, I feel like it's pretty underrated. Like, no joke, I only know a few people at least out of the readers that I know, only I think 2 people read it, and both of them seriously enjoyed it. And even a friend of mine who I tried to get to read this book, he only read like a few chapters and then read like the spark notes on it or something. He said, oh yeah, the spark notes was really good. Like says something when the book can be so good. You can just read a summary of it, and even the summary being pretty good. Full disclosure, I do not recommend you to just go out and spark notes this book or something of that sort. It's such a waste for like TJR's hard work on this, and like, to be honest, I enjoyed every single moment of reading this. Like, for the lack of a better phrase, I have definitely had some nights where after reading a section of this, I just did not want to go to bed. Like, I had to force myself to stop reading because I kind of ended myself on cliffhangers. So that has definitely been like my kind of struggle in a way, because I can understand if someone can get through this book in a night, like easily. Like it just makes sense to me. I would not want to stop reading this book. It's just so good. And I have definitely made a little bit of a mistake at the very end, because I almost thought I spoiled myself, because I had the bad habit of reading it and then just flipping to the end a little bit. But to be honest, it would be pretty hard for me to spoil it if you're closer to the 3rd quarter of the book. And then that's when we start to understand, why did Evelyn choose Monique to even interview her and stuff like that? Why everything we couldn't understand at the beginning starts to unfold, and it's just so much of a roller coaster through this book, because as Emily May puts it in a Goodreads review, Evelyn as a character herself is just so good at telling a reader like me just enough to keep me on the edge of my seat, but never enough to truly reveal like anything, until we finally start at the very end. We see some vulnerable moments from Evelyn, and everything just starts to just unfold. But even at the beginning, TJR, the author, has done such a good job of just kind of keeping us hooked from the very start. And kudos to her for that. I am definitely hooked on some more reading ever since I read this, but I am somewhat skeptical as of now whether other books are going to be comparable to how much this keeps you on the edge of your seat. So that is my verdict for Evelyn Hugo. Not overhyped at all. Please, please, please read it. You will not regret it at all. It is not a waste of time at all. And that wraps it up for today. I am a new booktuber, so I do not know how to close out videos. I'll just say like, comment, share if you enjoyed this, subscribe. And yeah, I guess turn on the notification bell if you're interested in more videos I'm gonna put out. And in the description, I'm gonna link to a few blog posts on the Sense Fiction website you should go check out if you want some more book recommendation. But yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching.